There's a Hasidic story of Rabbi Baruch Medjbish. Hope I'm saying that right. Rabbi Baruch's grandson came in crying one day. He was very, very upset. And he was crying and he was saying, "It's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair." Rabbi Baruch says, "What's wrong?" And he says, "Well," Yechiel, his grandson, says, "We were playing hide and seek. And I hid so well that they couldn't find me. And so they stopped looking and left me there. And that's not fair." And the story is Rabbi Baruch's eyes welled up with tears, grabbed his grandson and held him close and said, "God too, Yechiel. God is hiding and we've stopped looking. You see, Yechiel, God is hiding and we're not even looking anymore." And I think of that story this week in Parshat Vayelech because there is this sort of wrapping up that Moses is doing in Parshat Nitzavim, which we read last week and which we'll read again on Yom Kippur morning, and the companion to it, which we usually read together in one weekend, Vayelech, this year because of the leap year and other things it's drawn out. And in this portion, Moses calls Joshua, and God wants Joshua. This is the transfer of leadership. And God tells Joshua, "I'm sorry to tell you this, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to lead this people forward, and they're going to forget about me, and they're going to rise up, and they're going to rebel. They're going to go after other gods, and they're going to practice idolatry and break the covenant. And then I'm going to hide from them. And even when they come looking for me, I'm going to really hide. And my face, my presence will be hidden from them. They're going to wonder whether God is even with them at all." And Sfat Emet, Rabbi Yehuda Leib Ariv Ger in the late 19th century talked about this and focused on this phrase, "Haster astir panim," that I will surely hide my face, and says, why is it that it repeats? Why doesn't it just say, "I'll hide my face"? Why does it mean I will hide my face, which is kind of what the Hebrew says? And what he suggests is that not only does God conceal God's self when we're kind of going through a tough time, but then when that happens, the individual doesn't feel a sense of God's presence anymore and then begins to wonder, well, maybe there isn't God at all. And so what Moses and God tell Joshua to do is to write down this poem, which you're going to read next week, called Ha'azinu, and this long poem where God kind of warns the Israelites, "I know what you're going to do. You're going to mess up and screw up, and then it's going to go bad, but I love you, and I'll forgive you, and it'll be okay." And they say that this poem is supposed to serve as a witness against the people. And the poem serves as a witness to say to them, even when you think God is completely absent, read this poem, and you'll remember that even if God is hidden, God's still there. And not only do they say that you have to write down the words of the poem, it says that you need to teach the words of the poem to the Israelites so that they memorize it, that it should be a song, right? Can you think of songs that you've memorized? Do 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 do. I'm singing in the rain. I memorized all the words. All right, we all have songs that we can think of. If you've ever traveled to Israel with me, you know, zippity-doo-dah, zippity. Yeah, we don't want to do that one anymore. So, because when you memorize a song, it lives in your conscience. And what God and Moses want is for the Israelites to have this idea that God is with you in your conscience. Because there are moments that happen in the course of our lives where we really begin to wonder, are you there? Hello? And when you go through some of the vicissitudes of life, as our friends on the west coast of Florida are experiencing this week, as people all throughout the world are experiencing this week, and we're just not paying close enough attention. It's not just Southwest Florida that's flooded. Pakistan is flooded. Bangladesh is flooded. Last summer, Kentucky was flooded. There are lots of people going through a lot of anguish. That it's normal and natural that in those moments of darkness that we lack the clarity to see that God is really there with us. And so we need to learn to teach ourselves to say these words, Bevadai gam sham nimtza Adonai yitbarach. Even now, at this dark time, God is there for us. Last week on Rosh Hashanah, when we read the story, the binding of Isaac, when Abraham is done with this terrible trial, you would think that he would name the place, this is where God forsook me. This is where God was absent. This is where God let me down. But he doesn't name it that way. He names it Adonai Yireh, God will see, because it was in that place, Adonai Yereh, God was seen. The fact is that if we are open and searching, as Rabbi Baruch asked his grandson Yechiel to be, that even in those darkest moments when we think God is absent, it is at that moment that God can actually be most present. We just have to be willing to be open. We just have to be willing to search. Shabbat Shalom.